We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's October 18th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and you're watching News Generation, where we discuss the latest issues concerning our generation. Joining me in the studio is Kim Xiang.
Good morning, Yeun.
Good morning, Xiang. And Chijiki.
Good morning, Yin.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Studies show that people in their 20s and 30s are aging faster than their parents' generation. According to the data released by the National Health Insurance Service, the number of people in their 20s and 30s with chronic diseases has overwhelmingly increased. For instance, the number of those in their 20s and 30s with diabetes increased by 74% compared to 10 years ago. And experts believe young Koreans are aging faster than their parents because of their eating habits, which heavily rely on delivery food and junk food, as well as a lack of physical exercise. And the Human Resources Development Service of Korea has found that the number of millennials and Gen Zs taking tests to obtain practical licenses for blue-collar professions have been on the rise. The number of people in their 20s taking these tests to get a license in wallpapering more than doubled from the year 2018 to 2022. This study reflected the younger generation's mindset to prioritize high pay and life after work hours over social status and job stability. And the advent of AI has also opened the gateways for technologies like deepfakes to flourish. Recently, deepfake technology has developed drastically to the point that it's getting harder for people to tell apart real news stories from fake ones. Officials found those most vulnerable were teens and people in their 20s, also referred to as phono sapiens for relying on their phones as much as their body parts. This age group mostly consumes the news on social media, where a lot of deep fake generated fake news is found. And the Korea Press Foundation found 6 out of 10 teens surveyed used YouTube or Facebook to access news. Only a little over 13% of the 2,500 surveyed said they went on the actual website of broadcast channel or news outlet. And that's why officials are calling for better media literacy education in the country, especially since the rapid development of generative AI tech like ChatGPT is increasing the chances of young users from accessing and then eventually believing in fake news. And countries like the US and Finland have been holding classes to better educate the public on how to tell apart real facts from fake news on these generative AI apps. So Chihi, could you tell us a bit more about how other countries have been trying to ramp up their own media literacy rates?
Well, looking at the various ways to raise media literacy skills of citizens worldwide, it's important to look at the intended audience first. So the major category of this would be campaigns, and they usually target the general public. And so these campaigns, there are things such as Be Media Smart campaign, which is carried out in Ireland, and the RAI Digital Pills series that's carried out in Italy. Both of them usually consist of a more general message that's targeting the public, the general public as a whole. It's delivered with the support from different media players like broadcasters as well as social media platforms. These campaigns, I mean, they may not be as detailed or as in-depth. However, they're really important in raising the overall literacy rate of media literacy rate among the public.
And I think the Western countries out there are doing a really good job in the fact that they are prioritizing AI development, but they're also taking a look at how to better regulate ethical issues regarding it, and also like things related to media literacy. Now, Xiang, what do you think South Korea needs to do to ensure a higher media literacy rate, especially among teens and those in their 20s?
Yeah, I mean, as you've mentioned, and I think what US and Finland is doing, integrating media literacy into the formal education system, into the curriculum itself might be a good idea. We have classes teaching information technology as well as social studies, ethics, and things like that. And according to the times, if we put some of the media literacy programs into that, would be a good idea for the Korean school children as well as people in their 20s here. And promoting digital literacy as well as promoting sort of critical thinking skills would be great, having a bit of skepticism. And I mean, media has always been manipulating the public. It's not just right now. I mean, now obviously it might be a bit more convincing with deep fakes and actual images that convey certain messages. But throughout history, even major news outlets were used for propaganda and things like that. And even nowadays, huge bias between media companies exist and news outlets exist. So I think it's a good chance to actually really think about media literacy, really think about by ourselves and determine whether it's safe for you to believe in it or not.
And I think I completely agree with you. If it's included in like our primary education curriculum, it'd be really nice for us to learn from a young age how to better detect what is actually real news from fake news. And that was our news feed for this Wednesday. Let's now switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. If you were given the chance to find out what will happen to you in the near future, would you take it? Well, it seems like that's a popular option among more millennials and Gen Z. So take a look at the screen to find out what exactly I'm talking about. Zodiac signs, MBTI, Personalcolor tests, and now DNA tests. Some millennials and Gen Z sure love to categorize themselves and find out every detail about what their specific kind has to offer. Nowadays, DNA tests are blowing up among those in their 20s and 30s. Through these tests, people can find out all kinds of information, starting from what type of personality traits they have genetically to whether they'll experience hair loss in the coming years. Getting a clear sense of who I am, that seems to be a pivotal question for people in our generation, and we've stepped up our game from taking online free MBTI tests to using science, more specifically referring to DNA tests. So here in the studio, could you tell us how this works?
Well, mobile DNA testing has become a lot more popular among the millennials and Gen Z because we have the characteristic of wanting to find out more about ourselves, and they really want to find out their biological roots.
Okay.
And unlike the MBTIs or fortune telling or 사주 in Korean, which is also about learning about yourself, your personality traits, these DNA tests, they actually have a more scientific ground, which is more convincing, and they believe it's really literally more scientific and more believable. And they have a lot of categories, including their exercise habits or their skin and hair condition, for example, or the nutritious state they're in.
Or some of them tell you which sort of countries you might be from, where you originated, you know, your race, racial mix.
Yes, the racial mix is also part of it, and the categories range depending on the type of service or kit that you can buy, which I will explain later on. And actually last year, I myself also decided to get one of these DNA test kits, but I was lucky because I got a free one, as you see on the screen. That was the kit that I got for free. I had to make numeral trials to really click on that register button at 10 a.m. Early last year. And I got this kit, and as you see, there's a little bottle where you spit into, and they test your saliva from this bottle. After you spit into it, they have that serial code. You seal it well in a box, and you return it back to the institution that you got it from, and they will examine it. And I think I got my results after 2 weeks or so, and that's usually the average days in which you can get your test results.
We're seeing a lot of development thanks to science.
Yes, we are.
We used to go online and take that free 16 personality test on MBTI, but now people are stepping it up.
That was the hot topic of news generation.
I know, even till this day we do talk about MBTI. But it's quite interesting to see that a lot of the younger generation are using a diverse set of tests out there to find out about themselves. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the younger generation itself, many of us in this generation are exposed to innovation in technologies and are able to welcome them with open arms, as well as easily adapting to the new technologies. In fact, around 90% of the DNA genetic tests are taken by individuals in their 20s and 30s. As Ji tried out, these tests not only inform you of your genetic traits, but also a guideline into keeping your health. So from whether you're genetically blessed with strong lungs but have weaker livers, or which exercise fits you the best and what foods you must be aware of, many who've tried the DNA genetic tests claim that it was worth their time and money as well.
Now I'm curious how you can actually try these DNA tests out. And you know, Chihi, you tried it out, so I think you're the best one to be talking to this about. So to what extent can you find out about yourself?
Right, first of all, how you can get this kits. You can get it online very easily from different sites that provide these, and the price ranges from $100. I think you'll explain it in
Yes.
detail later on. And you can also get it in some pharmacies as well.
Okay.
I got mine online. Yeah, once you apply it for online, you will get the kit delivered to you, and you'll have to find the guidelines and the directions that are inside to follow them and deliver your spit bottle so that you can get your cells tested. And like I said, you can find out different things through this test. And what I found out, and I would call them my superpowers and weakness. So one of my superpowers was that I was a lot more capable than the average people in Korea at maintaining my vitamin D level,
Okay.
which is crucial for people these days because office workers especially,
Yeah.
they don't get to see the sunlight too much, right?
Right.
But once I get my vitamin D,
Yeah.
I'm able to maintain it. So that's one of my superpowers. And I
You don't
really
need-
like
You don't need much sunlight, you're saying.
well, if I get
Now and
some,
then.
You
yeah, I
become
can
a
keep it.
superhero.
I know,
You,
a
you become like a calcium
vitamin D
superhero.
woman. Yes.
Exactly.
I like the second superpower though.
What is it?
What is
So I have this DNA
Yeah.
called the ACTN3 DNA.
that?
It's a DNA that's found in 75% of Jamaicans.
Oh, really?
So it makes me a very fast
Rasta
sprinter.
man.
Oh.
Which is why I didn't know why I was really enjoying running, and I was quite fast at it.
And I've actually witnessed you running, right? You're really fast. No wonder you have that DNA in you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my second superpower. But I have one weakness that
What is your
really
weakness?
devastated me when I found this out
Right.
at first. I had the hair loss DNA.
No.
So I did some research on
You
it.
going bald?
Yes, I might go bald. And I thought I would really get bald when I get older, but I did some research and found out that this particular DNA, it's only manifested in men, thankfully.
Okay.
So I will not go
So
bald.
as long as you stick to your own sexuality, it'll be
Yes.
all right.
All right. It's quite detailed as to how far you can know about yourself.
Yes.
Xian, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, also, this test didn't tell you about where you're originally from, is it? Like you're not 75
No,
Jamaican?
no, I'm not.
Okay.
Yes. So then can you elaborate on how we can use
But,
these tests?
Of course, yeah. I'll tell you a bit more about it. With the DNA genetic testing, you can find out a lot more accurate facts than the traits you would have guessed and deduced from living your life with your own body. So let's have a look at the screen to find out exactly which genetic traits you can find out from the testing that caught the eyes of the younger generation. One of the major findings will be whether you are susceptible to hair loss. This analysis in general includes various categories such as genetic hair thickness, grey hair, as well as alopecia areata, in simple terms, topical baldness. Other interesting traits include likelihood to suffer from obesity, as well as how fast your skin may age, insomnia, and dementia. So typically a general genetics testing will scan around 60 parameters or conditions you're likely to be interested in, including your ideal nutrition for your body type and general health guidelines, as I mentioned before.
Right. I think this is really nice because our generation, as we've mentioned throughout the past few days, is also interested in well-being and health. That's why we have concepts like healthy pleasure surface. So that might be a reason why a lot of people from our generation are trying to take these DNA tests. But are there other reasons why that we're trying to take MBTI or Personalcolor? I mean, there's so many self-identity tests out there. And why do you guys think our generation is so fixated on taking them?
Yeah, I mean, the obsession comes from various different sources. Now, although Jihee had the pleasure of taking one of these DNA tests for, free of charge, the costs a considerable amount, starting from around $200, but going up to thousands depending on which service provider you choose or the choice of your package. So if you want more of an in-depth analysis, it might cost you more. Experts believe that this is due to many millennials and Gen Z's tendency to accept new technologies, as well as a growing desire to know better about oneself in an effort to take better care in theory. Such desire is colloquially known as Meism, which also can be translated to egotism. And we expect to see actually an increase in various types of services to meet such desires in the near future, not just DNA genetic testing, but other sorts of lifestyle guidances and something more sort of customizable to your own standards.
Definitely. You mentioned Meism, and I think it comes because a lot of people are in a one-person household. They're in a single-person household, meaning that they really prioritize what they do with their own times. You mentioned lifestyle, but the industry has also matched that demand.
Right.
Can you also elaborate on the reasons why our generation is so fixated on trying all these self-identity tests?
Well, in addition to what Shi-young mentioned and explained about Meism, we're really interested in developing ourselves, understanding ourselves, identifying what traits we have, whether it be biological or the personality part. I feel like the society, social atmosphere also has something to do with this. We're living in a very hyper-competitive society. And I feel like by trying out these tests, these younger generations, they want to actually get their own unique characteristic, figure it out, and find a competitive edge for themselves so that they can really become a competitive individual in this society.
That's so true.
It is. And I also feel like they're being really smart with their lifestyle because, like you said, we're really interested in well-being. And for example, for me, I wanted to get my DNA tested because that was a few months before I decided to get a body profile shoot. And I really wanted to, figure out what exercise suits me. I wanted to figure out the right diet
If
plan.
you're Jamaican or not.
Yeah.
Whether figure out in life.
Whether I'm good at growing my muscles, my body is good at it, etc. So I think that's what the younger generation would like to do.
I cannot agree more. With socioeconomic standards elevating, I think we now have the luxury to find out about ourselves. And also self-PR, we want to brand ourselves in this hyper-competitive environment. Now let's move on to what our viewers had to say in regards to our discussion topic. We asked if any of our viewers tried these self-identity tests, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the trending online DNA test, but it could be simple as an allergy examination. So here's what 3 of them had to share. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with Giselle. Giselle said, I did a personal color test a few years back. I'm spring bright, so bright, warm tone colors fit well on me. User said, I did a data analysis on all food that I ate because doctors seem useless at giving me the right prescription. They blame it on my genes and always tell me that my lesions are hereditary. Tiras Bell says, when I was younger, I used to be allergic to a lot of things like cat hair, grass, etc. I took tests to see what I was allergic to, but now I've outgrown them. And we're now going to talk to a member of Gen Z from the States who has taken some of these tests. Through this live interview, let's better analyze the reasons behind our generation's need and demand to find out more about ourselves. We're now going to include a fellow Gen Z in our talks. He's Joseph Kim, studying in the US at the moment. Welcome, Joseph.
Hello, Joe.
Hello.
All right, Joseph, so we've talked about self-identification tests. I'm curious as to whether you tried any out of them before, and if so, why?
Yeah, I tried one and offered in the US called 23andMe. And obviously, similar to the reasons you guys talked about, I was interested in learning about myself, learning about health predispositions, as well as just any family history that could be involved.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, so 23andMe is obviously a very popular one as well. I think it's one of the companies that actually really made the DNA testing popular. So, I mean, which was your favorite things out of what you found it? And did you find anything new about yourself through the DNA genetics testing?
Yeah, there was nothing really interesting about my ethnic background. I'm 100% Korean, but something interesting I found was my family history. I was able to find some distant relatives, some second cousins once removed, which means we share great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, I'm sorry. And I was able to meet one of them, so that was really cool. Just being able to connect and learn about how our families kind of connect.
All right, so in the database of 23andMe, if your distant cousin that you never found out about also have taken the test, did they link you up, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly how they match it up.
wow.
So
That's really interesting.
That's very
You-
interesting. Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
believe
is.
we share about 1.7% of our DNA is shared. So
Of course.
it tells you really accurate numbers like that.
Might be just a random Korean.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Right, so you had your own reasons for getting these tests done, but why do you think our generation in particular as these tests and taking these types of tests?
Yeah, I think it's just about getting to know ourselves, just to understand who we are, why we are the way we are. It's obviously not the best way to diagnose ourselves. It shouldn't be used that way, but it's still great to be able to understand who we are. For me, for example, I learned about my hair texture.
Right.
My hair is very curly. It's hard to manage, but now I understand it's my genetics. It's not it's something that's really weird about me.
Right, you're finding like the root to your self-identity, I guess. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing your experience. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
And as a final note, here in the studio, what do you guys think are some pros with our generation being more keen on finding out more about ourselves? But at the same time, do you guys have any concerns with this sort of Meism culture?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the DNA genetic testing is all pros without that many cons. It would be fantastic to be able to find out about your genetic traits so you're better aware of what could potentially be harmful for you health-wise as well as lifestyle-wise. The only issue I'd be concerned with here would be the reliability of these tests, of course, as well as concerns of data privacy, as many of these service providers often tend to be startups, and which may not always be fully responsible for the safekeeping and ethical usage of the collected DNA data from their clients. And for example, as what Joseph said as well, it might not be agreeable. He might not have opted for the option for someone else to find genetically matching sample, but they might have just done it as part of the service.
Yeah.
Nobody reads the fine print. No one
But
knows what's actually going on.
You should read it. You should read
Might
all
be
the
100 pages of lawyers' gibberish.
Yeah, maybe
Who
like
knows?
a tip for all the companies who are trying these DNA tests online. Maybe make like a shorter consent forms for us to get the better idea.
Yeah.
What about you, Dee? Any final notes?
I think one potential downside of all this trend would be the development of a self-centered attitude.
Yeah.
So I believe it's good to understand yourself and find out about yourself, but then we should avoid creating a divisive culture where people divide
Koreans, Jamaicans.
or with like the similarities and differences that they find out through these tests. Make sure that they respect and also appreciate others' differences as well.
I can't agree anymore. And also, I think that as Joseph mentioned, you shouldn't rely it as like a health medical like forum or fully take it as like a diagnosis. Just take it for fun, you know, find out about yourself.
I think it's actually very important to also choose a reliable company.
That is very true.
You know, I actually Googled some of the, the DNA testing places, and a lot of them seem quite scammy. You know, there's a lot of similar sort of titles of websites, similar company names to the popular ones. And I think you should all be aware and choose a sort of more reliable ones if you're taking.
Yeah, as we mentioned
tests.
earlier in our news feed, it all comes down to having better literacy and
literacy.
media
There you go,
literacy
yeah.
awareness. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Si-young
My pleasure.
and Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
New
Generation.